frequency by subtracting time. If you're moving forward towards the light, you're subtracting time from the distance between incidences, which is increasing frequency, but you're actually the one who's increased the frequency because you're the one catching up on you're the one capturing the light quicker. So it's not really compression, and it's not really expansion.
Well, true, but the thing is, it's like, this is why it's relativistic, is why we have a physical relativism to answer this. Because if you went to where the light was emitted and landed in that ship, and that would involve matching its speed and the rest of it, then you would suddenly be, nothing would look compressed. Meanwhile, the people on the ship that you left, that are still traveling at this relative speed, have seen you enter this compressed state. And so it's relativistic because when you go there, you're part of that frame of reference, okay? So, but it still is like a compression. It's just relativistic. The person outside it could be seen as making it, but then just because they did the acceleration, once they're going at that speed, once they turn their engines off, it's the other guy going at that speed. They're no longer, quote-unquote, responsible for it. So that's why relativistically we just say the photon is the thing that changed, but relativistically where you have to say, will change relative to what? Out there there's another person where change relative to what? Out there the light is redder instead of, more X-ray.
Yeah, I'm just saying that these words get a little dangerous because, we could start talking about sound because it's sort of, they are comparable in that you have this constant, this speed thing. And you do have this idea where you can change frequency. But yeah, maybe sound, there is actual compression. You know what I mean? I haven't thought it through, in my own head to say that. But I'm saying maybe there's actual compression and expansion when it comes to sound, but in light, that's not real. It's not. Those words aren't applicable because the same effect isn't taking place. The actual sound hasn't been altered. What's altered is the actor, the impactor is the one that's changing how it's being interpreted. So it's not about the emitter. The emitter is always the same. It's the receiver who's always in a different position. The one who's changing the nature of it by moving, by acting on it. That's not even the right word.
No, that's true. It's like, so it's really, one way of putting that in physics then is, that really the rest frame of the emitter is it's like the origin of the solar system. You don't even have to put it in the center of the sun, but it makes the most sense. That is, because that's the one where, copper burns at a known frequency of light, and you can calculate what the frequency will be based on the velocities, extra information. So yeah, the most simple frame of reference is just who emits it. And then there is a compression. It's an electromagnetic wave, so the compression is in this electric and magnetic field, and they're like perfect rubber bands, so there's not the friction issue that sound has to deal with, not directly, though it can come in. And the weird thing is just that, what is a field? That's the weird thing. It's not like having compression in a gas or something because of this relativistic aspect where, if you're flying over an ocean and you see a sound wave or any wave in the ocean, you can catch up to it and speed past it. You can't do that with light. It's always going faster than you, and that's the weird part, is what is that medium?
Yeah, a lot faster. Even the shift is only a tiny percentage of the absolute speed. So, that's where it gets, because when we're talking about these frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum, it's a huge, there's this huge variant in the potential frequencies. You know what I'm saying? From gamma rays or whatever to what's the lowest frequency that's part of the electromagnetic spectrum? Like radio waves, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the named ones, but I think, in terms of quantum mechanics, there's probably a very lowest level of energy, and whatever the photon that can contain that would be the lowest force-bearing, particle.
Yeah. Well, anyway, like I said, I have to think through this some more to come up with something relevant out of it. But it's just something that was kind of going through my. It was just kind of funny how, like I said, I got there through this weird way of I was, thinking about, um, psychology and, the whole, the subtle differences between people, and it was just weird how I ended up on this subject because of thinking about car racing. you know, but I guess there's sort of a parallel there just because it is bodies in motion. But anyway, that was sort of one of the subjects that was sort of interesting to me is just this idea that it's all this stuff, this perception thing, and we got 7 billion people on planet Earth, and they all sort of have this unique perception. I mean, as much as we could be like each other, like two people could be very similar, there's all still enough variation to create different people. Yeah, like Gary Earnhardt or whatever. I mean, you could just, you could spell somebody's name with 2 R's. You know what I mean? There's these subtle little fucking differences, and they can make such a big difference in the end conclusion that the person draws too. So I mean, you could have so many things in common with somebody and still draw a different conclusion about just fundamentals. And it's just such a subtlety. There's just such a subtle difference between me and Pyro. And so, okay, Pyro's sort of optimistic. Pyro's kind of invested in the life game. Pyro, and there's probably only a few experiences or ideas that define that difference. I mean, there's extractable personal experience or extractable established logical premises, or let's just even say premises, whether they're logical or not, that make the difference between us. Like, one person saw the Easter rabbit, the other person didn't, or whatever the fucking thing is. I don't know how to, but there's this little subtle difference, and maybe you just changed, 20 seconds of one of our lives, and you turn me into a Pyro, and you turn Pyro into a me.
I think it took longer than that to form your person.
Well, thank you for that lesson.
No, the point is, though, it began with 20 seconds. Sorry, Gary, but Gary's point is it began with 20 seconds is the thing. And then there was years after that piling on, that sand pile type of a deal. And really it's not so different. I mean, because I do have a cynical view, and there was a point in time where I definitely could have seen developing that into the cynicism that you have, but I went a skeptical route.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that there's, we do have enough commonality in some of the ways we think that's why I'm sort of making the argument that there is this little subtle differences, and that's the part that's just so curious about so much of this, is that so much hinges on so little. I mean, it's just so little substantive. It's like that Martin Luther King thing. Is like, I use that as a joke, but I mean, it's just that you could have some stupid little phrase like that. I mean, it's not stupid, but yeah, and that could turn the whole thing. Okay, yeah, judge a man based on the content of character, not the color of his skin. It makes perfectly good sense. It sticks in your head, and it has this decisive tilt that changes your whole perception of something. And I guess I'm arguing is that we're made of those things, but they're so subtle and they're so lost in all of this, the complexity of our personalities, that we can't even communicate those differences to each other. But I mean, I'm obviously made up of that. I mean, I'm not made up of just some asshole who's trying to, be an obstinate, argumentative jackass. I mean, I'm made up of these ideas